All right, now Bilkis Bano gets justice after quite a long fight, a year and a half since her 11 rapists were out free after they were granted remission by the Gujarat court. The Supreme Court has now struck down that remission, ordered all those convicts to go back to prison. It's indeed a landmark verdict by the Supreme Court in challenging the remission of the convicts in Bilkis Bano rape case. The top court of the country has quashed the remission, pulling up the Gujarat government for acting out of its jurisdiction. In quite a huge setback indeed for the Gujarat government, Supreme Court has pulled up the Gujarat government for act of fraud. The words used by the Supreme Court, quote unquote, saying that it had hid facts for remission order. Huge allegation against the Gujarat government, as observed by the Supreme Court, saying that Supreme Court also holding that Gujarat government was complicit and acted in tandem with the convicts who approached the Supreme Court with unclean hands in the Bilkis Bano remission case. The convicts have been granted 2 weeks' time now to surrender as per procedure of law. Government has acted out of jurisdiction. The words used by the Supreme Court is that this is an act of fraud, which raises huge questions on the intention of the Gujarat government while allowing for remission of these 11 convicts. It was hugely condemned at that point as well. But the Gujarat government had defended it, saying it's a right, it's the convicts' right for them to seek remission and be granted for good behavior. Now, let's listen in as we have reactions pouring in on the same.
It's a very good judgment which has upheld the rule of law and the faith of the people of this country, particularly the women of this country, in rule of law, in the legal system, in the courts, and that there is an assurance of justice. They have very categorically stated what is the legal analysis and reason for setting aside, quashing the remission orders and directing the convicts to return to prison within a fortnight.
I'm now going back to that time because we had gone in a delegation of Edwa to Godhra, to the camp. We met Bilkis there, and you can imagine what her condition was. I'm just reminded of that, what she was like then. That whole picture is in front of me. It's extremely saddening, the amount she has had to fight. And today, I'm still waiting to get all the details of the judgment, but it appears as if the Supreme Court has upheld the view that there was the way in which those criminals were released was not correct. And it seems that they will be sent back to jail. That's what I'm hoping. I'm just waiting to get all the details still. But certainly, it seems like a big step forward has been made today. But I mean, when you think of the enormity of the crime, when you think of the enormity of this woman's suffering, you can only salute her courage in continuing her fight. She fought for 8 years to get them convicted, and she's had to come back to the Supreme Court to, see that conviction continues.
I think it's a very important judgment, a much delayed judgment. We've waited 1.5 years for this, but it is certainly a very welcome judgment. And it shows two important issues. One, the culpability of the state government. And I think this is a complete lesson for a government like Gujarat, which has, if you excuse me using the word, but has shamelessly supported not Bilkis, but the criminals. So this judgment is actually a big slap on the face of the Gujarat government and its version of justice.
I think it is a very, very welcome step that has been taken. It should have been taken some time back. It is not only a woman's right, it is a justice problem also. And, Bilkis Bano's child has been killed. There have been enough witnesses. There has been so much support, and there has been, this kind of a judgment in the first instance. Which released them. That also was very questionable. But today, the very fact that it is being reviewed and it's being looked back into, And these criminals, whoever they are, we have to now learn to cut across religion, and we have to learn to cut across, any kind of social standing that one might have. Cutting across all that, justice is what we are seeking. And here the justice says that, those criminals who have committed these kind of crimes should not be exonerated under any circumstances.
All right, certainly temporary relief there coming in for Bilkis Bano. At this point, we know that the political parties in Gujarat and across the nation were up in arms against the BJP government in Gujarat, questioning the reason to why 11 of those convicts were released on remission. We have Congress leader Mumtaz Patel joining us live. Thanks very much, Mumtaz, for speaking to us. Give us your take on Bilkis Bano having to suffer for a year and a half while 11 of her rapists were out and free. She claims through that period she was threatened and heckled, had to in fact shift homes multiple times out of fear. Today, do you believe she's got justice?
Yes, justice, definitely. So, act of fraud, this is what the Supreme Court said. And the shocking manner in which the Gujarat government conspired with, I'm sorry, I'm using these words, with the Gujarat court to exonerate these rapists, these culprits. I mean, using good behavior for culprits is one aspect, but this was not a normal crime. This was a crime of the most heinous kind, and these rapists definitely do not deserve to be let out in a free society. It's unfortunate that this whole debate has become political, it has become communal, but it is not about the BJP or the Congress, it is not about Hindu, Muslim. This is a crime, and justice needs, the hope of justice today is there for all women out there. It's a victory for all women. Bilkis has suffered since 2002, but hats off for the courage that she's shown, especially in these times, to fight this out day in and day out under the circumstances that she's surviving at this point of time. And to even imagine these 11 rapists out there free in society for the last 11 months, it is shocking. I always have claimed that this is not just a political thing. It is not about political leaders, political, the different parties to raise their voices for and against. I think the whole society, the society as a whole needs to rise up, because this is a fight for justice for all women out there.
Now, absolutely, this is less of a political face-off here, more to do with human rights, no doubt. But at the same time, we see that the Supreme Court has taken this up sternly with the Gujarat government, claiming that they have acted out of their jurisdiction, also to suggest that this was an act of fraud. Really harsh words used by the Supreme Court on the Gujarat government to suggest that they acted in compliance with those convicts to try and fool and present false facts or false details with the Supreme Court for them to grant remission to them.
Absolutely. Yes, act of fraud, evidences were tampered with. I mean, this crime was there for all to see. She lost her child. She lost so many family members. Everybody knew the truth. It was all out there. But to blatantly conspire to exonerate them for whatever reasons, this definitely does not show any humanity on the likes of the government or the court in Gujarat, and we welcome this decision by the Supreme Court. It has given us hope again, and I again say this is the best news that we can get at the beginning of 2024.
No, absolutely, but Mumtaz, I'd like to surely remind our viewers that the fight is not over for Bilkis Bano, because here we're looking at the court looking at how this was not part of Gujarat government's jurisdiction to announce for remission, but they do have now an opportunity to approach the Maharashtra government seeking same remission. So there is a legal avenue for these convicts to reach out and maybe even be granted remission in the near future. How soon will that happen is for us to wait and watch. But as we see here, Bilkis Banu's struggle here for justice isn't entirely over.
No, it's not. But then that is why I again say that we as a society need to stand up. And today, if we all come together, I'm sure justice is going to prevail. The people of this country need to rise and look beyond religion, look beyond political parties, and look at it completely from a humanitarian point of view, and also struggle and strive for this justice, because it affects future judgments for any of us. I mean, today it's Bilkis. Today, what today? For the last over 20 years is Bilkis Bano, but it could be like, our own children, our sisters, our mothers, anybody for that matter. So this should not be taken lightly by society at all. I would advocate that very strongly today, that people, Aam Janta, need to understand what is going on in this country and how laws are being twisted, how evidences are being suppressed, how the governments are conspiring to protect criminals, rapists like these. And today it's happened to Bilkis Bano. Tomorrow it can happen to any of us. So let's all stand our ground together and fight for justice.
A quick one on Bilkis Bano claiming that she was threatened all through the years, even while they were in prison, let alone when the convicts were out after remission. While they were in prison, they were granted parole multiple times. She claims that they would come by to that area, the same area that she still lives in, and hold sabhas and hold meetings, and in many ways trying to instigate her family members and her. So she's lived in fear ever since this crime has happened, irrespective of whether they were in prison or not.
Yes, exactly. And this is like deliberately reminding you, taunting you, and making you realize that it's not over for you. And but that's because they have the support of the system.